I have just gotten the privilege of sitting in on a broadcast with the owner of the Mavericks, Chris Wind. It was one remarkable broadcast. I didn't get all of it, but I was able to get some of his art. He is also known as Chris Wind the Emma, and such beautiful art with such meaning in how it ties events together that have occurred over time in America. So I'm going to let you view some of that interview and check out his art in the background. This is Colored Roses and Thorns with Tammie Chin. And here's the interview, well, the broadcast.
Customs from other countries, so it's like it's a slightly different experience. And oftentimes we do get lumped into one category because we share black skin, but we don't share quote unquote black language or black culture. They brought a language with them. Don't diminish the fact that you have people who are able to speak Creole or Spanish, depending on what country they come from, or patois. There's all these different, distinct linguistic features that they have that aren't shared by, native-born Black Americans and things. So it's an entire culture. And so, but anyways, so does that technically mean that you can be initiated in this, like you can be part of Black culture without necessarily being black of skin? On the surface, it should be like that, but specifically in America, because they tied skin color so closely to culture in this country specifically or whatever, it doesn't necessarily work in this context. All right, but anywho, so how did some of these ideas of who we are and the language around that develop? So as you already know, Hollywood pretty much determines the way that the world looks at America. Period. Like there's no question about that. Like most people, their image of America and their understanding of America is entirely based on things they've seen on TV and in movies and things of that nature. All right. So when motion pictures first began, when the film industry was first starting to emerge in the early 1900s, you basically had two key schools of thought. All right. So you had Thomas Edison, who was beginning to make films in order to demonstrate, some of his inventions and things or whatever, like marketing the ability, like I have this thing, I have this machine, I'm able to do this. And so some of those early movies that were made were largely steeped in propaganda, specifically to spread a particular image of the black race. Like one of the biggest films during that time period, which was actually shown in the White House, was Birth of a Nation. So you had somebody dressed in blackface that was going around attacking white women, and then the Klan showed up in order to stop them. So they were the heroes of the movie. So you had that type of stuff going on at the Edison camp. He's single-handedly responsible for popularizing the stereotype of black people loving watermelon. I didn't care for watermelon growing up. I kind of appreciated, now, like when I got older and I was like training in martial arts and stuff, and had to stay hydrated, I started to appreciate watermelon more. But it's like, it wasn't like one of those things that I just felt compelled, oh man, I don't know why I love it, but I love that was a stereotype that was perpetuated by those early films.
Mangoes.
So you had that going on. On the other half, you had the pioneers of Hollywood, who were Jewish immigrants who were fleeing persecution in Europe, who before coming to the Americas, they had an idea of the quote-unquote American dream. In fact, that whole concept of the American dream is credited, at least in the documentaries I've watched, or is credited to those Jewish immigrants who had an idea of what they felt it would be like to be in America. You know, like they had all these, you know, hopes and aspirations and things. And so when they got here, it wasn't exactly, you know, the ideal that they thought it would be. This was before this blanket white identity was kind of fabricated here. So Jewish people were, you know, mistreated here and there by American-born whites, just like, you know, anybody else. They didn't get the chains and shackles thrown on them as soon as they got here, but then they, you know, they were certainly singled out and, you know, had they share, you know, ass whoopings. But so they're like, okay, you know what? We need to change this. And so at the birth of the film industry, birth of moving pictures, they said, okay, so we're going to use this medium to basically broadcast that ideal America that we had in our heads before we moved here. And I know that that's a sensitive kind of area right there, because you're used to seeing things like when Hitler, when he was making films about his ideal world or whatever, it was kind of messed up, you know. But in this particular case, I have no personal reason to believe that this was done with any insidiousness, you know, in mind. But it did open the door for some later on. But anyways, so they said, okay, we're gonna put together these movies that have this ideal America and things of that nature. Those same individuals who went on to found like MGM Pictures, they were in a position where they felt the need to actually change their last names to more white sounding names so that they wouldn't be persecuted for being Jewish. So that was something that happened early on with that. And then they started to put out these films, you know, these romanticized ideas that still heroism, just some of these same ideas that are still prevalent in Hollywood movies to this day. And one thing they did in particular, this is where we come in, where black folks come in. So the Jewish people, when they arrived here, they were particularly fond of our music. They were particularly fond of our culture and things that were going on in Harlem and just the movement, the Renaissance, just what was happening with black culture. So they were some of the first film directors and things to start putting those images in film and TV. And so they would show these quote unquote upstanding black performers, and so two things ended up coming out of that. So you had the idea that the entertainers and athletes are the quote unquote good ones. Not to say that that's what their intention was, but that's what ended up happening. So it's like, so as far as the American public was concerned, oh, the ones that are in pictures are the good ones. The other thing that happened was, because they used figures like Lena Horne, for instance, who could pass for white because she was so light skinned, and because of her features, because of her mixed heritage or whatever, that stereotype of the light skinned ones being either better or more refined, things of that nature. Once again, not saying that was the intention.
They actually put makeup on her.
Yeah, to make her even lighter. Yeah. So,
to make her dark.
Yeah, in some cases, but then no, they definitely capitalized on the fact that she could play both white and black if necessary. And so, anyways,
I just
that idea started to kind of develop in America, whether it was intended or not. All right. So, and then one of my favorite quotes as of late is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's not always that